Hey everybody, Zachary Beats, Deal Structure time. You must be wondering why the heck is Zach popping up before the Deal Structure Sunday, and that's because we have such a special announcement that we're going to be announcing at the end of this video. So stick around, enjoy your Deal Structure Sunday, and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, welcome to another Deal Structure Sunday. It's Chris Prefontaine, and I am with Jennifer Hansen from lovely Arkansas. Jen, welcome to a Deal Structure Sunday.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Now, I was just saying to Jennifer before we started filming, I don't remember all deals, so these are always good, cool conversations that are truly like, I don't know the answers. I know some of the nuances with this one. Let's start with the basics, Jen, and then I'm sure I'll think of things that happened on this as you go through it. You know, like this one, the source was what? Was it expired?
This was an expired VA call.
VA called unexpired. Okay.
In August.
Mm-hmm. And if I recall on that one, I'm just thinking of nuances now before we go to numbers. I think I might have been not around and maybe Zach talked to the guy first, or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, Zach and I had a conversation with him. I went up and saw the house. He was open to the conversation, and I really want to credit my VA on that one. And we went up and I went up and talked to him. And from the beginning, his background was in finance. And so he had a lot of questions, which Zach kind of fielded initially, and that gave me a chance to sort of observe. So it was really helpful to have Zach on the phone.
All right, so that's cool for the listeners to hear, because I know you and I, the whole community, the Wicked Smart community, the associates talk like we just know this stuff goes on, right? But a lot of listeners and viewers don't know that, or they might be brand new to Deal Structure Sunday. So you basically said, hey, can one of you guys help me on this call and talk directly to the seller, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So good for them to know that we do that, obviously. And then, all right. So then the guy was a little different as far as the questions and the details and his life situations. You don't have to get into his personal stuff, but it's just a different deal, right?
Yeah, it was a very unique situation. And he had lots of moving parts that he had to resolve in order to be able to move. I think that's the key thing. That was the key takeaway that was obvious from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you said August for an expired. You said two things. You said one was you credit your VA. Did he or she do a really good job, or what do you recall from that?
Yeah. This was a very, like I said, the seller had a background in finance. And so his way of negotiating was to sort of throw lots of numbers really fast. And she hung in there. I'm not sure I would have the first conversation when I heard it, but she was great. I just really appreciated that in the long run, because I got to know what it was like to have those conversations.
I definitely think that, I think it's when you're new, can be a toughie, or it can just be intimidating or daunting. And I think I've heard some of her calls. She's super good.
Yeah.
And then you said August. Did this come to fruition? What month did this deal get signed before we talk about what it sold for on the numbers?
Early November.
All right. So to follow up.
Yeah. November 11th was the expiration of my option. It was an AO. And so we closed it out November 5th, I think.
Okay. Really cool. Good for them to know. So what kind of follow up? I keep saying before we jump into numbers, but there's so many things here. What kind of follow up did it take? Do you remember?
It was pretty quick once he and I talked. He was all about it by then, and he had listed it 10 months earlier for $550. This was a 5,500 square foot home, and no interest, and gradually dropped it. He was pretty desperate to move, he said, and so he dropped it because of the condition of the home to $350 was the square it was listed. And when I went to see him, he had been discussing a tentative relist. And so he did not end up relisting it, or maybe it had been listed for like 24 hours or something, and his realtor released him or something. But so we picked it up. He was pretty discouraged.
Yeah. Well, most expireds, right? Never mind that long.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you picked AO. I'm thinking, was there, besides the different nuances, was that the only reason you decided to go AO? I'm trying to think back
He was not open to
to anything else. Okay.
yes, in the spread. He got it right away. He got the structure of the deal and what the spread was, and he just wanted to manage that himself if that's what it turned into.
Yeah. So, okay. So good for the viewers to hear this. Sometimes the seller will say to me, like, why would you even tell me this way? Because you don't make as much. And I always say, well, morally and ethically, that's the best deal for you. And in this
Right.
case, you could have walked away if you didn't want to just do an AO, what we call a sign out, if someone's watching doesn't know what that means,
Right.
where we find the same buyer we would find, but we don't stay in the middle. So we give up paydays 2 and 3, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
payday 1. Okay. So you went on the market, and how long was it on for?
We had, well, it was on for maybe 6 weeks before we started getting real interest, and had one buyer who kind of kept just delaying and delaying. And I could see this seller getting really discouraged, understandably so. And I would bring in other interested buyers. I vetted them pretty well because this is an elderly gentleman, and he just didn't need a lot of interruptions. And so finally, we kind of got down to the last couple of weeks and had a very different buyer show up. And that's the guy who ended up buying it.
Okay, so on this AO, let's talk about how you structure it, and then we'll talk about what the end result was. You structure it so you would just have a simple flat fee, so there's no misunderstanding or anything like that. I do remember that. The more you say, the more I'm remembering.
Yeah, not exactly. So initially it was a straightforward AO. So I had worked out he would get 33% was the percentage that he
Of the
wanted
down.
for that. Yeah. So, and I would get the remainder of the down. And so I took it for 380 and put it on the market for 419 with kind of thinking, given the condition of the house and some other issues, that we might land around 400. And
Okay.
so the more that we talked and the more that I worked with him, and I knew from the beginning that this was kind of going to be a high maintenance deal, it became clear that he had other debts that had to be resolved before he could actually move out of the house. So for my peace of mind, I had to know that going forward, if I found somebody, they could actually move in, that everything he needed could be resolved. And so I also didn't want to be in a situation where I've put together this great deal and all of a sudden there's only a little bit of money left for me.
Yeah.
So I just said to him at one point, I understand you have all this other stuff, but that's not my job. My job is to sell this house, and here's the minimum that I'll do it for, which was, depending upon which way the deal had gone, I ended up getting pretty close to what I would have made at the best possible deal anyway. So at that point, I just said, my minimum on this is $20,000 plus the first month's rent. And he kind of had to think about that for a little bit, but then he came back and it was clear. You mean, I was already going to net him almost $50,000 more than he would have with the realtor.
Yeah, for sure. I know some people watching can't get their head wrapped around that always. It's because you're offering terms. That's the bottom line. You got. I'm more loose in this now because people say, well, where'd you get that stat? Well, listen, I used to say 80% or 82%. It's between 60 and 80% in everyone's market, where a buyer can't walk in today without any tweaks or more deposit or more credit and get a loan. Just that's the stat. So you have the ability to make some cool pricing. All right. So then you ended up, what was the end result after all said and done with the sale price?
So the interesting thing about this deal is this gentleman had a mortgage for $150 and a HELOC for $30. So he had a debt load on the house itself for $180. We ended up finding, and this is what's great about this system, you just find that unique buyer for that unique property. We ended up finding the perfect buyer for him, who a family that would not probably be able to qualify for a mortgage anytime in the foreseeable future because of medical bills with children. So they came in, and fortunately, that buyer was familiar with owner financing.
I do remember that.
So he came in and offered the man, you know, if you'll owner finance it to me for 10 years, then I will give you all of your finance charges up front and I'll pay you top dollar for the house. So prior to this, the seller had been wanting 40,000 down, top, you know, he wanted a full 10% down right from the start. He wanted above market rent, you know, all of the most he could get. And I finally said, you have to be flexible somewhere. I think this was really key to the deal. So we got him to go out for 10 years on a lease finance, which was actually a benefit to him because having fixed income was a great plus for him.
Yeah.
And so the buyer that we found ended up being able to do exactly that. And so we structured it that the entire purchase price would be paid off over 10 years, monthly installments. So $3,600 a month. And then, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But this particular buyer was able to do that. And then he put down the 40,000. So it was just an amazing buyer. But in order to take care of the buyer, and that's the other side of the system that works so well, you're not just taking care of the seller, you're taking care of the buyer. I set it up to go to work out of an escrow. So everything was held in escrow, so the buyer has security and the seller has security. I hope that's clear.
It's super good because when you were talking about that, I was just going to explain to the viewers that picture this deal. If the guy buys it and pays the owner, this is what Jen and I talked about day one, the owner could just not pay his mortgage. And now this whole thing's screwed up big time. Right. So by having an escrow company take it from the buyer, pay the seller's mortgage, and then pay the seller the difference that he deserves over 10 years, right? Yeah. Each proportion each month, everybody's safe. It was well said.
Right. It takes a huge tracking burden off of the seller and the buyer, but especially off of the seller in this situation with the move and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every single penny was documented.
And peace of mind for the buyer too. I mean, that's what some buyers don't even know it. This guy knew it, but even if the buyer didn't know it, peace of mind for you knowing that morally and ethically, okay, they're all set. Like this thing's not going to go sideways.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. Okay. So any other nuances, Jen? I think this was done, all said and done. This was done like a contract for sale or installment. People call it different things in different markets. That's how the structure was set up, right?
That's right. And when we closed, it was one of those situations where once they had come to an agreement, time became of the essence because the seller then committed to move out pretty quickly and had no place to go.
Yeah, so, I think you did this deal like I remember it transpiring over the weekend, then you closed it like the following week.
Yeah, closed it on that Monday.
Yeah, so that's fast.
Agreement on Friday night, and we closed Monday afternoon. And I, like I said, I knew people who could help me close. We closed at a title company, had the escrow all set up, so everything kind of flowed. But it was really nice to have those connections and those pieces in place so that we could move. And the preliminary work had been done, of course.
It's awesome. I know this deal has more nuances, and when I throw out contract for deed and other things, people might get a little confused. But the bottom line is, stay tuned on the Deal Structure Sunday videos, and you'll just get all the nuances, and then get your butt to the event. Speaking of that, I just thought of this as I said the word event. One of the events, was it maybe last year? You weren't 100% sure you were going to come. I don't know which one it was, and I kind of thought it through and said, I really think you should be there, and I think you agreed after you went, but could you just comment for people who haven't been to our events maybe?
Oh yeah, that was the business scaling event, which was tremendous. And I think part of the great advantage to working with you and your team is the community that you create. And there are probably plenty of people with expertise, but I don't think there are a lot of people out there who can build the kind of community that you all have. And so for me, and I think for a lot of the other people who are involved, and I'm at High Six, that is essential to moving forward because everybody's committed to developing expertise and sharing it with the community. It's just a very unique aspect of your program. And going to that event, then you get to see these people, talk with them in person, build those relationships even further, ask questions in person from other experts. It's great.
No, I appreciate it. I get emails like recently, especially the holiday sales coming up and the stuff we've been working on. And they'll say, before I even buy QLS, I want to like talk to like 5 of your associates. And I say, well, A, it's $1,000 investment with a full money back guarantee. And B, there's testimonials everywhere. And C, come to the event. You can talk to every single one of them. It's no big deal. So anyway, thank you for that comment. Any other comments for the viewers, Jen, relative to the deal or anything right now?
Yeah, I would say the key thing on this, and in my opinion, it was a great deal for me. I mean, I really did want in this situation to be able to walk away. And so the AO actually turned out to be the ideal format for this kind of a deal. But just being flexible and ready to pivot, because things just kept coming up in this deal that we hadn't known about at the beginning. And I guess that's really the key. Just, we talk about pivoting, but it's not just in the overall deal structure. Within each deal, you may have to come up with solutions.
Yeah, and what's cool is, to your earlier note, you can either call us or get on Slack and ask the other High Six associates. I think you've done both of those things. So it's kind of neat to have the community. It's definitely not just us. It's all of us. Pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. I must have called or Slack messaged Dawn like 5 times that day. And you were on constant call. That's another great aspect of it. Everybody's available.
Yeah, good stuff. So guys, I don't want to belabor the event or the deal structure, but you got to get to the events. They're in April and September. You can register on smartrealestatecoach.com. And Jen, thanks for being you, and congrats on the deal.
Thanks.
Hey everybody, I'm back. As promised, the special announcement that we have is that we are adding an additional tool to your tool belt now. We are adding the Wicked Smart workshops. We're going to be doing them live via Zoom call on the 4th Thursday of every single month. It's just another thing that we're adding to the community to make sure that you are able to accomplish deals. If you haven't been on our Wicked Smart sit-downs, the Wicked Smart sit-down is another live Zoom call on which we answer any and all questions that the community has. So the Wicked Smart workshops are there for us to teach you more in depth. So we're going to be diving into deal structuring, deal challenges, deal nuances, and other fundamental aspects of the business. That way you can get deals done. So the only thing you have to do is just make sure that you are on our email list, because we will be sending out the Zoom call, the Zoom link, the week before the event. So just make sure that you're on our list and you're ready to rock and roll. I will see you at the 4th Thursday of every single month, and that way you can get deals done.